Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. This podcast will be divided into two parts, the episode 5 and episode 6. It will be clearly marked in the show notes if you want to just skip to one of the parts. Thank you. Here's a synopsis for episode 5. In flashbacks, Denver and Moscow ask the professor if Juan, Moscow's grandchild, can join them in the heist. But the professor is hesitant. In the present, Gandia restrains Tokyo in the panic room and announces on the bank's intercom that he has Tokyo and that Palermo was the one that aided his escape. In flashbacks, Berlin tells the professor that dozens of hostages could stage a rebellion at some point, and that it would be wise to have an infiltrated member pose as a hostage to defuse a pivotal revolt. The professor, Moscow, and Denver meet Juan, who is now a trans woman that goes by Julia. In the present, she poses as a hostage in the bank and goes by Manila. Palermo admits to the professor that what Gandia said was true. The professor assures he will be punished later and orders the group to unchain him. The robbers continue to melt the gold in the foundry. 43.5 tones? I don't know. At that point, while in the freight elevator, Bogota and Nairobi kiss passionately and mentions that they should marry after the heist. As Rio and Denver enter an elevator, Gandia throws a grenade into it just as the doors close, and the two rush to muffle the grenade with their bulletproof vests and helmets to survive the explosion. As a shootout ensues between Gandia and all of the members of the gang, with the exception of the restrained Tokyo and a wheelchair-bound Nairobi, who remains armed in a bathroom, Gandia escapes through a duct, and the duct leads him to the room Nairobi is in, and he headlocks her. So that episode 5, whoa, it really ramped it up. It's what I think the Money Heist actually does its best on. I think that some of the best episodes happen in the middle of the season, if I remember correctly, and kind of leading up toward the end. I do feel like majority of the time it can be a little bit slow of a beginning, kind of just working your way back into the Money Heist world. But overall, we find out a few things that are pretty interesting to the plot. We get a nice little flashback with Moscow, and what is the guy's name that we lost? I always forget that guy's name. Let me see if I can find him real quick. We'll do a. So the majority of things I wrote down in my notes regarding this episode were it was interesting that they kind of did a little backtracking. They were able to bring in the Oslo character. I think they were bringing in Moscow, Berlin, everybody for these flashbacks. You know, Money Heist is always heavy in flashbacks, and that's what allows them to extend this bank heist story for so long, because we're learning about these people as we're going in real time with the bank heist. It was fun to get to see everybody in these flashbacks. I will say, I thought it was smart but kind of easy to seed these plants, to seed these storylines of, wait, one of the hostages was actually on our side the whole time. But and not talk about it till like midway through the season. It just Money Heist is almost like watching a magic trick happen in a way. It's like, what are they gonna do next? Because clearly it's gonna be some bullshit, or not bullshit, but it's gonna be something they whip out of nowhere. It's just like, holy shit! Like, how did they do that? It just seems like they're constantly finding new ways to insert new characters and make people relevant. And yeah, almost right off the bat, I thought that this was a very interesting character of the new character Julia, who happens to be a trans woman, and there's some pretty interesting dialogue that goes along with it as well. So I did think the Green Beret Ganada is getting a little bit too flashy with his style. I felt like it was somewhere around episode like 4 or 5. This guy just once they start telling, they start giving him some backstory, saying he was a bodyguard, saying he was this, saying he was that. I felt like none of this was shown in part 3, or even at the beginning of part 4. But this Green Beret guy came out of absolutely nowhere and is just trying to, kind of, chew up the screen a little bit in a way, just, take the stage. And the way that he was acting in the bathroom is is a little extreme, and the way he's acting in the panic room is obviously a little bit extreme as well. It just seems like he's enjoying being too much of a psychopath and not really going too much for the hostages. And he's not. It doesn't really. It feels like he's not he's. It's not that he's glorifying, that he's enjoying just kind of, uh, you know, picking at the team instead of actually completing a mission. Yeah. So the Green Beret guy, Ganada, I keep forgetting his name, is yeah, he's kind of giving off that assaulty, aggressive Arturo vibe. He didn't quite, assault. What's it? Toro, he did not sexually assault Tokyo, but he did physically assault her. I mean, he whacked her in the head, but I mean, they were kind of going at it and stuff like that. And so she's chained up in the panic room. And she's kind of out of the story for the last like couple episodes, and she's very much on her own, away from the company or away from the team. When Ganada throws that grenade into the elevator that Denver and Rio were in, I swear that grenade is sitting there for like what feels like 5-10 seconds after he throws it in there. Just feels like it took a very long time. They had enough time to take off their vest, put up their hat on, jump on each other, hold the thing down. I'm surprised that grenade didn't blow them half to hell. But yeah, they do this interesting divide on this episode by going back 5 minutes of showing what Nairobi and Bogota are doing in the elevator. They're like hitting it off, ready to get married and whatnot. I'm like, y'all need to chill out. Y'all need to calm down. This is way too fast. This is just, happening way too fast. Y'all need to uh, have a conversation. But I guess they kind of are, fast tracking it because of the situation. They feel like they don't know if they're gonna live or if they're gonna die. So let me see what I wrote down here. Monica and company release like 1,000 rounds into this Green Beret. So this is right after the 2 5-minute split ups happen, and they're showing the Monica running up with, I don't know, some sort of AK or mid machine gun or something like that, and she's like, "Brrr," and she's like all like unleashing all over the Green Beret guy. I don't know how this guy is not like limping, done. Like he shot. Like I think he does get tagged a few times. I mean, he does have armor on and whatnot. But I mean, there's like 1,000 rounds. It's like I think Bogota is shooting too. I think maybe Nairobi is. Like tons of people. Everybody shooting at the Green Beret guy. Denver, I think, and Rio. I've got a mixed feeling on Rio this season. This guy, it feels like he's being pushed around so much. He doesn't have much. I know that he's got this like traumatized spell about him, but my lord, it's affecting the character in a way that I don't think is serving. The writing is not helping him in a way, saying that I need help, or most of his stuff is kind of being sheltered this entire season. It's not my favorite version of Rio, for sure. But yeah, I want him to get out of this funk, and so obviously that's not just the flip of a switch. But still, I need him to have a conversation with somebody. But I guess there's just so much happening and so much other plot lines that are going that that's what's going to dominate the screen. what did I have as a prediction at the end of episode 5? So yeah, I I predicted at the end of episode 5, because of what happened to Nairobi in the bathroom. Um, and right before I got into episode 6, I was like, "Yep, Bogota's definitely going down. That's how this is ending." So um, go ahead and watch episode 6 to find out what happens next. That was a pretty crazy. That was an insane, like, judo switch, get up with throwing her hands on the doors and her head through the door. I was like, this is insane. Like, this guy has gone from being a being a hostage to a green beret to a bodyguard to like just an insane, trickster. He like killer. I can't even think of the word that would even describe him, because he's not only is he like skilled and tactful, but he's also like clever and maniacal a little bit with it, because he's also it seems like he's taking glee out of this in a way. I don't remember. And he does have this vendetta against Nairobi. I don't remember exactly what she did. Maybe she popped him in the head, popped him in the face, and that's what caused him to go to to get locked up, his hands locked up. But I don't remember exactly what happened. I might have to get, check the comments or something like that. Let y'all figure that out. But maybe someone there remembers. But anyways, whoa, I, I speechless once again. Always like to be thrown off on the predictability trail. Once again, Money Heist delivers an unpredictable storyline. Um, Nairobi, at this point, you've watched episode 6. Yes, pour one out for Nairobi. We have lost her on this episode. Of course, these are fictional characters, and the people actually losing their lives out there. And so I'm not trying to downplay any of that. I'm just playing around. But seriously, we did lose Nairobi tonight, and you're gonna have to pour one out, smoke one out, whatever you got to do to, you know, help yourself, calm yourself from this crazy ass episode. So let's jump into the synopsis. The gang hears Nairobi's gunfire as they rush to her. Gandia shoots a hole through the door and forces her head through it, while he ties her hands to the door. In flashbacks, Nairobi asks the professor to be the father of her child in vitro fertilization, because she believes the professor had to have good genes, which can't deny it. Initially opposed to the idea, the professor agrees. In the present, although the panic room is not present on the bank's blueprints, the professor deducts the location of the panic room to be the vicinity of the governor's office, behind the governor's bathroom. The professor tells Palermo this. Tamayo and Suarez plan an assault on the bank. Meanwhile, the professor sends Marcel to Algeria, where the police tortured Rio to gather intel. Gandia unties Nairobi and uses her to escape, while the group holds him at gunpoint. As he escapes, he shoots Nairobi in the head, killing her instantly. Denver throws a grenade, which injures Gandia. So yes, like I said off the top, I was shooketh from this episode. I was not ready for it. I kind of had predictions earlier that I was like, there is no way Nairobi's going to be taken out. She's had like 4 or 5 misfires on them trying to kill her. They literally shot her. The police shot her. She was nearly strangled to death, and then she was actually shot again. Craziness. But yeah, there is. I got some notes on this episode. The crazy head contraption, like I said at the top, I was like, holy shit, that came out of nowhere. This guy is absolutely maniacal. It was hella quick. But I guess because Nairobi is on a lot of drugs, hopefully she wasn't in pain when all too much pain when all this was happening. It didn't appear that she was in more distress than having her head put through a door and having her hands and wrists tied up. Yeah, obviously that's a lot of distress, but it didn't seem like she was like quote unquote tortured. I guess. I mean, obviously it's a horrible place to be, and to have your final hours in a bathroom like that. Um, but yeah, there are tons of shots with her when it just zooms in on her face, and it's like flashing back and forth from all the flashbacks of happy things that had happened to her before. I should have thought about it when they were doing the flashback with Helsinki. They did a flashback with she got a flashback with all of the girls dancing. Um, there was a lot of forebodingness with the marriage. Like all of a sudden she wants to get married at episode 2. It's like no, 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 these are the people that are saying they're clocking out on their final day, and then they always get shot on the last. It's the last day. It's the last, because they know it's their last hoorah. So there was a lot of foreboding to this, especially with the flashback with all of the characters except for Denver that had and the professor that had all passed away. It was Oslo, Moscow, Berlin, and of course Nairobi. And I love that final scene that we got in this episode with once Nairobi has actually been shot. They do flashes of her in this red dress, and she does this turnover, and we realize it's the same scene that was earlier, I think in episode 5 of it was kind of a flashback, but it was also a foreboding flashback. Makes me even wonder if it was 100% true. So, and of course Oslo got no lines. they just underserved that guy so bad. I had to go back and look what that guy's name was. It was the other guy that was in the scene. It's like, oh, it's Moscow, Berlin. We lost all these guys we love, and what was his name? Oh yeah, Oslo. Um, and so we do going back onto the story. Tokyo is able to hear the music in the panic room, which I don't believe after they said like there's like 50 kilotons of cubic, zirconium concrete between us and everybody else. I was like, I don't believe this. I don't believe she'd be able to hear anybody. If they can't hear them yelling when they were down there, why would she be able to hear music? That kind of doesn't make sense to me. So everyone in the police unit knows about the Green Beret hostage Gandia situation. They are all up to speed, and of course, the rat in the police unit knows all about this too, and he's feeding all of this information to the professor and whatnot. It's pretty crazy how they got that guy to just flip on a dime. I mean, they did like he did try to escape out of his like I don't know fourth story window, second story. I don't remember how high it was, and he about knocked himself out in the pool. That was that was a funny scene a couple episodes back. But yeah, let's see. Oh, let's see. I like the scene where they're saying, the professor is like saying we need to step back and see where we went wrong, and he goes as back far as like see part 3, talking about when Denver was supposed to go, when Gandia was supposed to go out there, and they sent Denver. I don't even remember why that went wrong. Like, why did they not send Gandia out there? I don't exactly remember why that happened. I had to go back and check notes or spoiler section or podcast or something. But yeah, I don't even remember Gandia being a big factor in part 3. I might just be in the blurry in the dust. I don't even know what's going on. But yeah, so he's like, let's see where we go back. It was Denver went out there instead of Gandia, and then Raquel couldn't climb a tree. Ah, yes, I remember. I gotta go work out. And it came to my attention that Marcel is just strictly there to be the audience surrogate, so it doesn't sound like the the professor is talking to himself. I'm kind of at the point in this season of thinking that they don't have the professor doing nearly as much intense stuff as they had the first couple of seasons. The first seasons, he was getting literally physically dirty. He had to go out to like these locations and remove evidence, and he had to go, run around in the dirt and cover himself in oil and shit like that. It was just like craziness, and I really feel like they're kind of toning his character down as to what he actually has to do. I wonder if he's just getting a bigger paycheck. He's like, I ain't getting that dirty anymore. I could definitely see that happening. But let's see what else going on. Um, yeah, and so they kind of just show the explosions in reverse and whatnot. It's visually interesting. Let's see. Also, the flashback with Julia and Denver discussing what is Julia's interest now as in regards to her being a trans woman and liking men, liking women, liking non-binary, liking different genders. What are you interested in now that you've decided to change from a man to a woman? And I thought this was a fascinating piece of information with regards to how they're discussing interest. Now, coming from a straight guy, maybe I'm completely out of the realm of understanding how you should be approaching a respectful topic, like asking a topic of this nature in a respectful manner. However, I felt Denver did an okay job. I felt like he was doing his best without trying to step on any toes, which is obviously what it sounds like I'm trying to do. I'm trying not to do now in audio form. But yeah, so let me. I enjoyed that. The only thing I wasn't was, aren't they like related in somehow? I know that that's Moscow's grandchild. I guess technically they're not blood related, but it still would just felt a little bit weird, and it felt like they grew up together from what they were saying, like robbing banks or robbing gas stations or something. Being thieves. She does kind of give this allure that she was interested in Denver way back when, and he seems kind of interested in that, but I don't. I got mixed feelings about. He's like, oh my gosh, my old my old friend is now a girl, and now I want to have sex with her or something. It's like, I don't know if that I it's a weird topic. It's not because she's a trans woman. It's the fact that all of a sudden it's because is Denver always wanted to have sex uh with him before she turned to Julia? I don't know. It's a different topic for a different day. We could go on forever. Um, but yeah. So let me see. Yeah, this is in that next. No, next. Okay, so Professor tells Marcel that he's going to he's going out there to figure out information regarding Marcel needs to go out there, grab information on Rio's torture. And I did feel like Marcel was about to flip one. I mean, this guy, he's like, if you go against the plans, then you are done. You are done. Like, I'm gonna start throwing fists at you again. Like, this dude does not like to go against the plans. You can see red in his eyes. I'm sure that they put him they could put him in a bull ring and he would start. You tell him that they're going to change the plans instead of waving the red flag, and he would start charging at you. I mean, he looks like he's about to take you down. The Ibiza naming party was fun, but it was all just to bring us down. I should have known that this all these flashback scenes with Nairobi going to the professor, wanting a child, him saying yes, all of this positivity that was surrounding Nairobi. She wants to get married after this. She wants to go see her kids. She wants to go. She wants to go. Live, and so it very much seemed that she was going to be taken down in this last Ibiza naming party. Is what happens. It's the last hoorah before she is taken down, and so I was like, oh fuck, I was wrong. Yeah, and so she was dressed in all red. I should have known. The forebodingness, Better Call Saul has been playing around with, um, you know, iconography in movies, having people hold certain things or stand beside certain signs or, do certain things that make you think, oh my gosh, they're done. They're going to get killed. They're going to get shot. They're going to get hit by a bus. They're going something's going to happen. And they're kind of playing around with that illusion. So if you know anything about like The Godfather and Oranges or something like that, check that stuff out, the forebodingness towards death. And so, yeah, so that was a crazy ass episode. Let me think about predictions real quick. It's episode 6. We have 2 more episodes on this part 4 season. I found out how the seasons are actually categorized. I looked on Wikipedia. So season 1 is part 1, part 2, and season 2 is part 3, part 4, which, what the fuck? That is the most confusing shit I've ever heard of. I might have even found that out on previous podcasts, but for anyone's interest, that's how they're actually going. So if you were going by the technical aspects of the show, we are in late season 2 of Money Heist, but we are not going to call it that. We're going to just stick with the parts, just because that's how they're naming it on the Netflix shows. It's too confusing otherwise. So yes, I hope everyone is staying safe out there during these the COVID times. I don't know if what officially we're going to start calling this time. The pandemic times, the BC times. I guess BC times would be before Corona times, would be before all this happened. But worldwide, I hope everyone is staying safe, staying inside, washing your hands, wash your groceries. I think that's one part not everyone's emphasized on. I've decided I sanitize and do everything to my groceries and stuff before I walk inside. I got to make sure all sanitized and feeling good, feeling fresh. But yeah, hopefully we can get back to what is going to be called the quote unquote new normal soon, and we'll get back to even in better things. Movies and even streaming stuff is gonna start halting soon if they aren't able to shoot some of this stuff. So let's hope for the better of everything to for that to happen, and obviously small business get back to work. Let me see. Support the podcast if you have a few extra dollars you're willing to help out. PayPal.me/the LuckyDog comments, questions, concerns, LuckyDogPodcast@gmail.com. Twitter, LuckyDog Podcast. Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Discord. Links are all below in the show description. We cannot do this podcast without you. If you have, like I said, comments, questions, concerns about how we can improve on the podcast, let me know, and we'll take in suggestions and see what else we can do to improve the podcast experience. If you want to support and you don't have any cash to fork out, that's totally okay. You can subscribe on YouTube, that helps just as much. You can subscribe or follow on Twitch, that both of those help also. Also 5 stars and sharing the podcast help tremendously as well. The podcast experience is pretty much unique to every podcast you listen to. So some people want to gain knowledge, some people want to be entertained, some people want to hear jokes. I'm just kind of here, blabbering on, giving some information on my opinions on, some digital media I've watched. And, the main reason I do this is because I realized how many seasons, how many movies, how much have I actually watched, but I can't 100% regurgitate it. So this kind of helps me capture everything in a little time capsule, a little bottle. Obviously opinions are subject to change. Hell, I might change my opinion on this podcast an hour after I put it out, but still, it's still a capsuled opinion on TV, movies, and media, and I enjoy it. I hope you all do too. So thank you all for listening, watching LuckyDog Podcast. We could not do it without you. Check out episode 7, episode 8, season finale review coming out soon for Money Heist of part 4. And we'll start gearing toward a new show as well. And yeah, we're taking suggestions. Thank you, and take it easy.